Let us pray. Almighty God, the creator and ruler of heaven and earth, we beseech thee to inspire and guide all our actions, so that we always walk on the path of justice, love, and charity to one another. Help us with thy grace to do all those things that promote the unity, peace, happiness, and prosperity of Nigeria in general and Lagos State in particular. Amen. Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues. You are all welcome to today's sitting. We also apologize for the late commencement of today's sitting. Let us quickly go through the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 18th May 2021. Page 329. Page 330. 331. 332. I have examined the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 18 May 2021, and approval is here granted. Any message from the governor?
Right, Honorable Speaker, sir. Distinguished honorable members, there is no message from the governor.
Any other announcements?
Yes, sir. We received a letter from the Commissioner for Finance addressed to the Right Honorable Speaker titled Request for Approval for a Special Dispensation for Bond Redemption Bridge to Bond Financing Program. With your kind permission, sir, I read. The State Executive Council and the State House of Assembly approved the registration of a 500 billion naira bond issuance program in the year 2016. Subsequent to this, the following series were successfully issued, which have helped to improve the state budget performance over the years. The prayer, sir, the Lagos State House of Assembly is humbly invited to approve a special dispensation by a way of new bond issuance at a lower rate and longer tenure to redeem and refinance the 47 billion, 46.37 billion, and 6.911 billion bonds refinancing bonds, with a total outstanding balance of 85 billion, via a three-step approach of redemption, bridge to bond, and new issuance program. Please accept assurances of our highest regard, as always. Signed, Dr. Rabiu Olowo, Honorable Commissioner for Finance. Thank you, sir.
Petition.
Right, Honorable Speaker, sir, there is none.
Matter for their public importance, none. Personal explanation. Reports. Honorable BC Yusuf, on the last sitting, we discussed about the issue of LSHA local government, how everything has been done accordingly. Just
thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Just yes or no, just so to say.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Everything has been resolved, okay, and the compliance with the House directive.
All right.
Thank you.
Honorable Joseph.
Done, sir.
Yeah, okay, sir. Thank you. Honorable Tobun. On the Bejuleki.
Yes, sir. The issue has been amicably resolved, sir.
All right.
He has complied.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, business of the day. We'll come back to that later. Business of the day. Deputy Majority Leader.
Right, Honorable Speaker. Distinguished colleagues, business of the day. House of Assembly Bill number 31, supported by Honorable Agumbiade SOB, Ikorodu 1, Honorable Mrs. Miranda ML, Apapa 1, Honorable Adams NB, Etiosa 1, Honorable Mrs. Shongodara MR, Surulere 2, Honorable Shokunle OH, Oshodi Isolo 1, Honorable Yusuf AA, Alimosho 1, Honorable Kazim RA, Ibejuleki 2, Honorable Elliot D.O. Surulere 1, Honorable Afini O.S. Lagos Island 1. Mr. Speaker, sir, to take this bill, may I move that Lagos State Organ Harvest and Transplantation Bill 2021 be read for the first time. I so move, sir.
Honorable Tijani.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I write to second the motion as moved by the Deputy Majority Leader.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. Mr. Clark.
Thank you, the Right Honorable Speaker, sir. It is with pleasure and honor that I read for the first time the Lagos State Organ Harvest and Transplantation Bill 2021. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Majority Leader.
Right, Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues, House of Assembly Bill number 27, supported by Honorable Agumbiade SOB, Majority Leader, Honorable Adams MB Etiosa 1, Honorable Mrs. Miranda ML Apapa 1, Honorable Mrs. Shongoda MR Surulere 2, Honorable Ogundimu O Agege 2, Honorable Togun MA Epe 1, Honorable Makinde RL Ifako Jai 2, Honorable Oluwa OF Ajiromi Feludu 2, Honorable Olumo SL Ajiromi Feludu 1, Honorable Sonny GBO Kochofe 1. Mr. Speaker, sir, to take this bill, may I move that a bill for a law to repeal the law to provide for the payment of pensions and other fringe benefits to public office holders in Lagos State and for other connected purposes be read for the second time. I so move.
Honorable Laiwala.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the motion as moved by DMA. Thank you, sir.
All in favor say aye. Those against no. The ayes have it. Honorable Ogundimu.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Well, the bill before us is a very straightforward bill, and it's just a law to repeal the public office holder payment on pension, lockup 17 of Lagos State of year 2015. Well, it has to do with the governor and the deputy governor in the state, and that has to do with the free benefit and pension that has been legislated on before while leaving the office. And saying this thing is actually the bill is coming to repeal these laws so that it can be able to go with the yearning and the situation that is really going on presently within the state. And the state came up, the executive came up with various justifications. But the main bone of contention in this law is that it has a way of coming up, they came up with it in order to, because of the economic situation in the state, in the country. And such a lot of money will be saved if this law is repealed. And the money can be used for other things within the state. It takes care of the aspect of taking into consideration everything that has been done before this law, which will remain as it is. But the area that I think should be addressed while going through this thing are other staff that has been allotted to all these public office holders. You know, if they were going to actually withdraw them from them, the Civil Service Commission should also still retain their services since their employment is a pensionable one. And also the other aspect that should be taken care of, you know, while going through this bill are some areas which has to do with the security as well. As the former office holder, if it is actually taking care of, if they are taking, going through all the, taking off them all the security provision that have been given to them, you know, the bill should be considered in a situation where it is not going to throw them open totally. These are the area that the bill is actually addressing, but when going further, I think we should go into the other area that I've mentioned. Thank you.
Honorable Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, honorable colleagues. Laws are made for governance, and they're not rigid, they're not cast in stone. That is why we have the Parliament. The Parliament is there to look at laws that have been made is to review them, to repeal them, to amend them, as the case may demand. We have a law here that was made 14 years ago, was enacted 14 years ago. Democracy has been sustained for 22 years, if I'm correct now. So it's no wonder that we look at our laws. It is important from time to time to relook at it. The events of 14 years ago might have been solved. In some crimes, laws are even sunset, whereby periodically, maybe every 7 years, every 10 years, they look at those laws again. The Parliament looks at them again. So this is a law that's been pushed to the Assembly to look at again. And the objectives being raised by the executive, which I think they're very noble, is to ensure that we look inward. I, for one, knowing full well, with the permission of this House, that I handle the appropriation committee of the state, I see the finances of the states, and I can tell you for sure, and I've said it during some of our sessions here, that Lagos State is not very rich. It's just that we have gurus that are managing the economy, that are able to just oppose the income with the expenditure. So any way we can cut costs, which is demanding of us now, we should look at it. And I think that is what this bill is trying to do by repealing a law, proposing the repeal of a law that brings some expenses on the state. But I want to agree with my colleague who mentioned a couple of things, especially that of security. Security is paramount. These are people that have served the state, and they would have taken some decisions while they are the ends of affairs of the state that is not palatable to some people. They are no different from judges of courts and the rest of them. So the security issue should still be looked at, whatever we do. But I think I support that the bill should go to the committee so that we can look at it more robustly. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, fellow members. In also adding my voice to the matter under discussion, I want to appreciate the objectives of government in wanting to tinker with this law. What they are asking for is an outright repeal of this law. But for me, I would rather an amendment to this law rather than a repeal. Yes, I appreciate the state of the finances of the state. I appreciate the concerns of the common man on the street. But the truth be said, you know, because for someone who has indeed served the state in that capacity of either the chief executive or deputy chief executive, I do not think that after office that it should be denied all benefits. Yes, I appreciate some of the concerns of the people, which is clear that for some of these categories of people, after their tenures as governor, some of them advance either to the National Assembly to become senators, some as ministers and things like that. Yes, I can appreciate that. For those that after office that hold further public office, there could be a caveat in the law. But for some of them who after being governors or deputy governors do not have any other thing to do, either as a further appointment, either by the federal or by the state, I don't think it is right and proper to say such, because, I mean, a point has been canvassed by some of my colleagues now. The issue of security is there. I mean, would we say because, someone that has served that capacity, would it be nice for us to just expose such a person to such hazard? Again, beyond that, for someone who has served the state in that capacity and does not have any other thing to do, would it also be right for such person not to get some form of benefit? Because even for civil servants that serve the state for some times, I mean, they get pension thereafter. And for someone who has served in that capacity, now with the rate of inflation in Nigeria, if you expect someone to serve meritoriously well and serve diligently in such positions, I think after office, I'm not saying it has to be something very elaborate. It may not be a matter of providing houses here and there, but I think something as an emolument should be coming in periodically, either on year-by-year basis or on term-by-term basis. But having to say to outrightly repeal, I think I have my own reservations. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Tabo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, with the submission of Honorable Abiru, I want to toe his line. Personally, I don't subscribe in totality to repealing of the law, because if we repeal the law in totality, we may give room for some people who want to amass wealth when they were in office, knowing fully that when they leave office, they are on their own. And sincerely, sir, Mr. Speaker, in my own opinion, I feel the principal officers, the governor and the deputy should be taken care of, no matter how small. And even the Speaker of the House. We are 40. We make law for people, for good governance. So when we live here, we will not be left open. We too, we were open. We don't have security. We don't have anything when we live here. So, Mr. Speaker, let's look into this law critically. I agree it should go to the next level, where members of the public can come and discuss extensively on this law. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Jude.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to toe the line of the last two speakers. Amendment for me could have been better than outright repeal. Because, like I mentioned, when somebody have gotten to certain levels, mostly age have came into the person, he's no longer active the way it is. Naturally, I believe the state can take care of that person. However, it can be amended to a very lower level, something that's acceptable by the general public. But to deny them the privilege after they have worked, like civil servants, some of them after they have reached the age of 35 still receive their pension. So, sir, so I think for me, even though at this level it's a privileged position, but there are just few people who are entitled to this kind of benefit. Total repeal, for me, is not good. But if you can amend it to something reasonable, at least they can take something home at the end of the day. For me, it's better off. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Sir.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, sir. Well, this is a very, very important matter in the sense that the governor, the deputy, even the office of Mr. Speaker, they have served and served diligently well to the honor of the state. But repealing or no repealing of the law, I believe strongly should be committed to the rightful committee to look at it thoroughly. But there are some key factors that we must consider, even if we have to commit it to this committee. The issue of the domestic staff, the issue of security of our past governors who have served us meritoriously well can be compared to that of a general in the army, who by the procedures and rule of engagement of their service, even when they leave office, they still retain some of the paraphernalia of the office, like the domestic staff, like their drivers. So strongly, sir, I believe this should be committed to the rightful committee to look at it critically, whether to amend, whether to repeal or not. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Laiwala.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good afternoon, my colleagues. I rise to support this good motion and to as well to let us see the reason why we should not totally support the intent of the bill. One, if you ask me, sir, we will say the bill, if it's passed, that it will cause cost of governance. And we will say that it will promote selfless governance and contribution to development and economic development of Lagos State. But the issue is we cannot totally say that the bill should just go like that. It needs to be reviewed, not that we should say that it should be amended, sir. It should be amended because we believe those who have served meritoriously needs to be compensated. We know the post-retirement benefits that they're supposed to get. After retirement, we know the kind of bills, the kind of commitments that we usually have. So where do we want these people to be servicing their mates as well as political subordinates that are with them? So I strongly believe, sir, that we should not repeal the bill, but we should make a kind of amendment to it. Not that we should repeal it, but we should amend it, sir. Thanks so much, sir.
Honorable Suraj.
Right, Honorable Speaker. I think this bill is a very apt and good, most especially for a state whereby the situation of the economic is retrogressing. I think there is need for the state to review some of the policy in order to strengthen the economy. Mr. Speaker, with this bill, I think the state will be able to provide for the unemployment and the citizens of that state. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate your position on this bill. And most of the members have raised very important questions concerning security issues of the public office holders, particularly those who have been the beneficiaries of this law. Well, you know, before you become a public officer, that you have a kind of lifestyle that you enjoy and you have used to. But from the day you become a public officer, that retinue of staff will be given to you. Suddenly you have about 10 police officers surrounding you. You have SSS, you have that, you have about 5 cars you have to ride. And you serve at least for a minimum of 8 years. At the point that you are leaving the office, removing this bunch of staff, immediately you feel like somebody that is being exposed, you know, exposed to danger, the kind of loneliness and also. So I think those who raise issue of security, it should be considered as well. Like we have our governors, we know the number of policemen that follow them, we know the number of cars, we know the number of SSS, and suddenly because of life after office, they will now expose them. And the same thing goes for other things, the staff at home, and also if they have been left from day one with the kind of lifestyle they have used to when coming in, it will have been an appropriate thing for them. But having exposed them to some things and suddenly changing the lifestyle, I think it's not good enough. Even from those that we copy the democracy from, particularly in US. Of recent, when the Congress was probing President Trump, you know, the intention was to deny him, if found guilty, of benefits that he would have been entitled to after office, which runs into millions of dollars. So if the people that we also copy the idea of democracy from are still keeping this kind of benefits, well, I think we should not trash it in totality. I quite agree with those who raise concern of economy, that the economy is not in good shape now, and the need for us to divert part of the fund for, social development and human empowerment. I quite agree with them. So, in conclusion, I agree with the idea that the bill should be committed. For the public, we know the position and perception of the public. They've always been against the law providing for the public office holder in retirement. But if they can look at it, hear contributions, and see, and even the executive that sponsored the bill, if there's a need for them to review it downward instead of total, repealing. So I think we'll commit that. And as Honorable Storm also said something, most times we just allow ourselves to be carried away by the public comments and perception. But I think it still has to go back to the public so we can hear their own contributions and view on these amendments. So before the bill is committed, the clerk did not read his own thing after the secondments, and I wonder why he's telling us now. Maybe he has been far away in Ijebu, or where is he from? So you can do that now before we commit the bill.
Thank you, the Right Honourable Speaker, sir. Distinguished honourable members, it is with pleasure and honor that I read for the second time a bill for a law to repeal the Lagos State, the law to provide for the payment of pensions and other fringe benefits to public office holders in Lagos State and for other connected purpose matters. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. And let me urge you and your team on the table here to make sure you don't allow this to happen again. This is not the first time. So if before they start contributing on the bill, immediately it has been seconded, please kindly raise, if not raise, instead of taking us back. Now, on this note, this bill is hereby committed to House Committee on Establishment to report back in 2 weeks. Deputy Majority Leader.
Laying of report, sir.
Go ahead.
Okay, sir. Next on the agenda is laying of report. A petition titled Mass Retrenchment of Officers, Humble Request for Intervention by Honorable Engineer SETONJI SS BADAGRY to Chairman Committee on Information, Strategy and Security. Honorable SETONJI. Thank you, sir.
Can you take that please again? I think.
Right Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues, laying of reports.
Okay, you don't need a motion for laying of reports.
Yes, sir, that's why I said laying of reports.
Honorable SETONJI.
The Right Honourable Speaker, my distinguished colleagues, I'm here this afternoon to lay a report of the Committee on Information, Strategy and Security on the petition titled Mass Retrenchment of Officers, Humble Request for Intervention. I hereby lay.
Yeah, Deputy Majority.
Right Honourable Speaker, distinguished colleagues, next on the item is presentation of report. A petition titled Mass Retrenchment of Officers, Humble Request for Intervention by Honorable Engineer David S.S. Badagry II, Chairman, Committee on Information, Strategy and Security, To take this report, sir, may I move that this House resolve to Committee of the Whole? I so move, sir.
Honorable Tijan.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I like to second the motion as moved.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Honorable SETONJI.
Thank you very much, sir. Report of the Committee on Information, Strategy and Security on the petition titled Mass Retrenchment of Officers, Humble Request for Intervention. Preamble. Sequel to the committal of the above stated petition dated 16 February 2021 by the Right Honorable Speaker to the Committee on Information, Strategy and Security to look into the issues raised and report his findings to the House accordingly. The chairman and members of the committee, as well as some members of the State Executive Council, thereafter met with the representatives of 155 officers of the Lagos Neighborhood Safety Corps Agency on 3 different occasions over the petition signed by 20 of them, alleging that their appointments as contract staff are to be terminated on April 2nd, 2021. The Right Honorable Speaker, sir, I hereby seek your indulgence to allow me to go to submission.
Don't start from page 2.
Okay, page 2. Cross of the matter. The leader of the petitioners, Mr. Giwa Bioku, stated before the committee that 155 officers of the Lagos Neighborhood Safety Corps Agency had been in the service of the agency as contract staff since the enactment of the law established the agency. He informed the committee that they were appointed as officers 25 years ago by the defunct Lagos Neighborhood Watch, but later transferred to the Lagos Neighborhood Safety Corps Agency in 2016. He alleged that the agency wanted to terminate the appointment of the 155 staff in April 2021 as contract staff without benefit. He appealed to the House to intervene so that they can be absorbed into the public service fully as permanent officers, not contract staff, in order to enjoy the benefits of remuneration, promotion, retirement benefit, or compensation. He also pleaded with the committee to stop the agency from retrenching them. In reference to the Gazette, Volume 39, Section 5 of October 1996, Volume 49, Section 9 of 13 September 2016, Lagos Neighborhood Safety Corps Agency Law 2019, Section 16, and Lagos Neighborhood Safety Corps Agency Amendment Law 2020, Section 21, 1 of 23rd June 2020. He argued that the alleged officers were appointed based on eligibility, fitness, and cognitive experience, not by academic qualification. Now see Annex A. Submission. DIG Israel Ajao, retired, Chairman, Lagos Neighborhood Safety Corps Agency, submitted that he is in total support of the petitioners and that they are all old neighborhood watchers with long years of experience, total commitment, and loyalty to the agency. He reiterated that the law enforcement agency will work more effectively without the use of public service rules, and that providing security should be a full-time job with cognate experience. He informed the committee that most of the officers are contract staff with no promotion or increment in their salaries, but nonetheless giving their best to the agency. He appealed to the committee to find a middle course between the civil service role and regimented service, like security agencies. He added that the board is handicapped because of the conflict between the use of public service rule and the law establishing the agency for the officers. Furthermore, the provision of the law cannot be implemented because the public service rule is limiting the functions of the board. 3.2, Mr. Boyega Babilai, General Manager, Lagos Neighborhood Safety Corps Agency, told the committee that most of the officers in question were above
55 years of age when they were transferred to the agency with no record of service and appointment letters because they were volunteers at the local governments in the state, which necessitated the offer of contract appointment renewable biannually for 2 terms. He reiterated that these officers had spent 2 terms of 2 years each, and that the second term will expire on 2nd April 2021, according to the civil service rule, and that letters had been written to the affected officers to notify them of the expiration. He, however, mentioned that he is not opposed to any solution that will ensure the affected officers are given permanent appointment. Mrs. Ajibola Ponle, Commissioner for the Ministry of Establishment, Training and Pensions, noted that public service rule and the Lagos State Neighborhood Safety Corps Agency law will be thoroughly examined in order to create guidelines for the agency and for the prayers of the petitioners to be granted. 3.4, Mrs. Titilayo Kitabe, Solicitor General, Permanent Secretary, Minister of Justice, stated that the problem started with the process with which the defunct neighborhood washers were absorbed into the Lagos State Neighborhood Safety Corps Agency. She stated that there was no proper register of volunteers in 1996. Hence, the volunteer service year could not be reckoned with as active service. She further disclosed that the executive arm could not undermine the laws of the Lagos State, maintaining that the eligibility criteria was as stated in the 2016 law, and that it is a peculiar case that must be handled carefully as it relates to security. 3.5, Mr. Muri Okunola Akim, Head of Service, Lagos State, informed the committee that the civil service rule recognizes the law establishing the agency and that there should be a separation between the law and the rule of law to guidelines. He appealed that bad precedents should not be set for other uniform to paramilitary agencies in the state, and that the rules and guidelines of the agency be maintained until the law is amended. He further informed that the public service rule only permits them to be contract staff only, and that their new proposal will be brought to the Parliament on the appointment of the contract staff. He further informed the committee of the approval of the executive governor, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, as follows: that 1, some of the 123 affected officers below 65 years are to continue in post for another 2 years only on the 3rd and final contract tour, during which they must train and transfer knowledge to younger officers. 2, pensionable appointment be offered to 42 officers aged 50 years and below. 3, secondment and change of cadre be considered from other sister paramilitary agencies within the state public service, LSHA, etc. Or 4, government could further reduce the already saturated unemployment market by offering pensionable appointment to interested youth in the state to serve as members, as officers in the agency, as an example. B. 4.0, findings. After careful deliberation on the subject, the committee observed as follows: that 155 officers were appointed on contract basis as neighborhood washers. The officers in question were given contract appointments. 3, the contract appointments will expire on 2nd April 2021 without benefit. 4, the contract appointment is non-negotiable, non-pensionable, which is one of their grievances. 5, 155 officers are affected and 123 of them are above 55 years of age. 6, 42 officers fall below age 50 years, which qualifies them for pensionable appointments. And 7, 11 officers are above the age of 65 years. And then C. Recommendations. The committee recommends as follows: that 1, some of the 123 affected officers below 65 years should continue to be in post for another 2 years only on a 3rd and final contract tour, during which
they must train and transfer knowledge to younger officers. 2, the remaining 11 officers who are above 65 years should be included in the last and final contract appointment. 3, pensionable appointment be offered to 42 officers aged 50 years and below. 4, government should further offer pensionable appointment to interested youths in the state to serve as officers in the agency. And 5, the Lagos State Neighborhood Safety Agency should forward the rules and guidelines of the operations of the agency to the House for ratification to forestall confliction with the enabling law. 6.0 appreciation. On behalf of the committee, I wish to express our profound gratitude to the Speaker, Right Honorable Obasa, and my colleagues for the confidence reposed in us to carry out this assignment. My appreciation also extends to the Clerk of the House and the Secretariat staff for successful completion of the report. Thank you, Honorable ENGR SETONJI David, Chairman, Committee on Information, Strategy and Security. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Tabo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to move that the report as presented by Honorable David SETONJI be adopted for debate. Thank you.
Honorable Saad.
I second the motion.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Those against nay. The ayes have it. Honorable Saad.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to appreciate what the committee have done. In fact, they've critically addressed the petition, and I think the prayers of the petitioners were adequately dealt with. I believe strongly that age is a number. A 65-year-old man with cognate experience and agility can still secure us at the local government level. They have the knowledge, they have the experience, and they know the locality very well. So we need them to continue to serve Lagos State in terms of security, especially at this very material time that security is what everybody talks about in the nation. So I want to appreciate the committee and stand with all their findings and recommendations, and I consider and I want to plead that this recommendation should be adopted by the House. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the issue being handled by committee is well treated, and I'm not surprising with the state of the performance of the Neighborhood Safety Corps by injecting the experienced personnel who has in one way engaged in security work, and this has really put the agency in the better advantage. But as human, they've enjoyed 2 terms consecutively. To now say they should leave, it sounds strange to them, and that is where what made them to really run to the House. Anyway, it's the House for all. And with this recommendation submission from the head of service, he has really give answer to all their agitation by even absorbed those below 50 years, 42 to 50 years, to give them permanent appointment. That's highly commendable. And those of 65, that they should renew their contract for another 3rd term of 2 years. I think the appointment has clearly stated, and I believe after this expiration of their 3rd term, there won't be any need for agitation. It's a straightforward presentation, and I give it to the Lagos State for a job well done at all time. I thank the committee for timely completion and submit this report. Thank you very much, sir.
Honorable Osho.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, firstly, I want to say a big thank you to the committee for a wonderful job. But I have two observations, sir. Number one, for me, I think age is an important thing. Either we like it or not, for the neighborhood watcher, it's about security. And at 65, I think anywhere in the world, a 65-year-old man or woman should be resting. So asking them to read it for another 1 year, I think is something I want us to look at. Number two, sir, I think there's a slight mathematical calculation that is wrong, because according to the thing, it says 155 officers, and it says on page 4, number 5, sorry, it says we have 155 officers are affected and 123 of them are above 55 years. Then number 6 says 42 officers. If you add that together, it's 165, not 155. So I think there's a slight mistake there. But generally, I think apart from my personal opinion, I think the issue of 65 and being renewed for another 2 years, that's 67. Considering the kind of job they are expected to do, I think that's a bit on the high side and a bit demanding. A 67-year-old man asking to be a neighborhood watcher. Is he sitting or standing? Is he walking on the street? What power, what energy does he still have at 67? Even with a very good health. The security entails a lot of things. The mental ability, you must be fit. So for me, I think 65, going 67, we need to reconsider that. Thank you very much, sir.
Honorable Tab. Thank you very much, sir. Well, I want to sincerely commend the committee for a job well done. And Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, these people have served the state conscientiously, diligently, under volunteer, with the hope that they want to secure their state, even when they were not paid very well. When they were even paid 10,000 naira, they were there doing the job. And I must tell you, sir, that most of them died in the course of this job because they were exposed to several attacks by hoodlums and criminals. However, my own observation is that for those who are still below 65 and who have served this state, I think we can still give them we can still adopt the recommendation as put forward to us by the chairman. But for those who are above 65, who have worked for this state and they were relieved of their duty without any benefit, I feel we must be humane in whatever we were doing. So instead of telling them to go back to duty post for 2 years, at least they can calculate their benefit for that 2 years and pay them off, so that they will take the money and start doing something and rest, enjoy their life. Because at 65, they cannot be as strong as they were before, and they cannot do other things. And they could create room for the younger ones who are able and ready to continue where they stop. So in my own opinion, they should be paid well, rather than telling them to go home without any benefit. Others, I'm in tandem. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, the Right Honorable Speaker. I also want to commend the committee for a good job. Like what others have said, those people have been able to secure the state time without number. Late last year, during this 1 million boys, lots of challenges that we had, especially in my constituency over there. It was through those people that we are talking about now that were able to assist. Some of the law enforcement agencies, they ran away. They were not where to be found. And we have the records and most of those things. Truly, age 65 as been said by one of the honorable members there, age is just a number. Most of us, in some of our areas, the so-called vigilante, the so-called olode, how old are they that we are using to secure our houses and our streets? Some of them are 65, 80 years. I'm not saying the 65 years of age are not old enough, but as been said by Honorable Tobun, they should be compensated. They have been in this job, and I want to implore the Ministry of Justice. They said in 1996, based on the some of the submission here, that the Solicitor General and Permanent Secretary was saying that the volunteer service here could not be reckoned with as active service, that they don't have the records as at that time. It's not particular to these neighborhood safety corps. We have lots of our lots of those issues at the MDAs that they don't have proper record, and we have said it here time without number. And when we don't have records, this is some of those challenges that we'll be facing. Had they been we have the appropriate record, we won't be having this type of issues. Those people, sir, the Right Honorable Speaker, sir, please, they should be compensated for the services they have rendered. They started this in 1990 when some of them are not being paid any kobo. And up till now, they are still there. So they should look at that. And the other recommendation, I'm in support of it. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to commend the committee for a thorough job. I like the recommendations. I also want to commend Mr. Governor, because I read somewhere here that the committee was informed of the approval of the executive governor of the state, which also concurred to some of the recommendations of the committee. But I would like to say a few other things. I remember vividly when we were trying to create this neighborhood safety corps. We spoke on this floor, particularly about the local policing, intelligence gathering. That was the main thrust of this corps. And I remember very well that we talked about elderly people within the community who understand the dynamics of our various communities very well, who are retired but not tired, who want to still serve by protecting their community and providing information to the appropriate agency or security agencies of government. We're not expecting them to go and be the one that go and carry the fight to the offenders, as the case may be, but they provide intelligence. I remember that very well. I also know that at 65, the lecturers, I think they already got something up to 70 years old now. Those are very cerebral people. And for them to still function in that environment, it means their brain is very active. I think the doctors are doing something similar as well. So if you feel that a 65-year-old man is already becoming senile, well, I don't think so. I think at that age, experience, which is what we need very critical in that environment, is something that should be considered. Well, the intent, like I said, is to have all cadre of persons within that force or within that corps to be able to provide the intelligence that we look forward to. So I'm happy. I'm not saying any law should be breached, because I've seen in their submissions that trying to use the civil service rule to operate that agency is creating conflict. That is what is actually creating that conflict. So I like recommendation 4 that says that the Lagos State Neighborhood Safety Corps should forward the rules and guidelines of the operation of the agency to the House of Assembly for ratification to forestall that conflict that they have recognized in that area. Security job is a very delicate job. I think anybody that is involved in the security environment, irrespective of how they got into that system, should be compensated, because our lives were in their hands or are in their hands. And at the end of the day, if you tell them to walk away like that. But at the same time, I'm not saying we should break the rules so that it doesn't open up flanks for other areas. But something must be done. So I'm looking forward to that ratification coming. And before then, like Honorable suggested, I know it might not be in a budget somewhere, but this is something that must be looked into, and they need to be compensated. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, fellow members. I also want to commend the committee for painstakingly going through the petition of the petitioners. However, Mr. Speaker, my contribution will also be on recommendation number 2 and 5, as mostly discussed by our colleagues. I think I'm not sure that anybody above the age of 65 is accommodatable within the civil service rules of the state. So, for me, I am not in support of this recommendation that they should be included in the last and final contract appointment, that is those above 65. But having said that, I'm also not averse to them being compensated in whatever way is possible, but for them to remain in service, I don't think this is too good for us. There are so many young men out there looking for employment. I appreciate them as I've served, they may have experience, but they should pass on the experience to those coming behind them. 65 is old enough to stay off government work. Then on recommendation number 5, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the submission of both the chairman of the Neighborhood Safety Corps, that of the head of service, and the GM, it is clear that there is a conflict between the civil service rules and by virtue of, and this Neighborhood Safety Corps law, by virtue of the service they provide, and from what the vision of the House is, we see the Neighborhood Safety Corps more like a paramilitary outfit, and for such outfits, there is some level of discipline that is expected of them. It's a regimented service, and I think it is very important that for the board too to have a full grasp of its men. It may be very important that we have a look at the law with the view of amending the areas that needs to align with civil service and areas that has to be embedded in the law, because I'm not sure that the 5th recommendation here, I'm not sure it is the same thing as amending the law. I think the law will be much more useful and weightier to.
What they are saying is the regulation, not guideline or whatever he puts in this thing. So it's supposed to be the regulation.
Well, if the law is not in conflict, as said in the body of the report, all I'm saying is from the body of the report, well, if it is regulation that will resolve the problem, I think this may be sufficient, but I actually think we need to really look at the law. Thank you very much, sir.
Honorable Jude.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I want to also appreciate the chairman of this committee and its members. And my opinion here is that the 5 recommendations he did and his team, for me, they are okay, and I pray that the House should adopt it as the recommendation of the House. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Akisa.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I just want to speak to the number 2 recommendation. They even said the officer above 65. I think 65 years old man cannot do anything again. Yes, with that type of job.
security. We are talking of security.
Are you 65?
I am not one, sir. So I believe they should be compensated as recommended by my senior colleague, Honorable Tomo. They should find a way of giving them something. And they are just about 11 in number, just 11 of them. So they should look for something to give them. So with that, and I'm in support of the remaining 4. Thank you very much, sir.
Honorable Philip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to join my colleagues to commend the committee for a job well done. I want to go straight to the recommendations. I would like to say I agree with all the recommendations, but I'll start from number 2, what a number of people have spoken about 65 years old and above. But if we look at recommendation number 1, it even says that some of the 123 affected officers that are below 65, that when they are retained, the real job is for them to just train and transfer knowledge. It's not like they're really going to go out to the field. So I think we can, and I'm sure that the 11 above 65 too, that should be their job, for them to train the younger officers. So I think we can retain that. But in looking at recommendation number 1, when they say that some of one of the 123 affected officers, I wish the committee would have, gotten the executives to commit to a specific number instead of them, so that they won't go and do things behind the house. And also, let's know the criteria that you want to choose some of these 123, so that they don't just do it as they wish. There must be a criteria, the boxes that will be ticked for you to select some of the 123, and there should be a specific number to that regard. Then regarding recommendation number 5, I agree with it in totality. And what they were saying about the public service, the civil service rules, is that I think the committee in charge in the house, maybe the committee on the staff, they really need to look at these civil service rules, because they don't even have titles for some jobs that are created in the MBA in some agencies. So they really need to look at that, so that it can, be done properly and every civil servant can be taken care of. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Sahib.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, sir, and distinguished colleagues. I want to lend my voice to this important topic. Number 1, I want to commend the Lagos State House of Assembly for taking a bold initiative when it was due for them to do so, by creating and proposing this neighborhood safety corps that is the intern in Nigeria presently. I want to say that by saying there is no way that we are going to have a kind of embryonic idea, the way the Lagos State House of Assembly conceived it some years back, that we are not going to have this kind of problem. Number 1, in any formation or creating any law or any systemic involvement that affect public's life, we are going to have 4 things. Number 1 is formative, storming, norming, and performing stage. The recommendation of the House has been so explicit on all these 3 things that I've mentioned. Number 1, the number 1 recommendation, that is the formative stage, about 123 officers to be affected. That was when this decision was taken. Because number 2, 11 officers of 65 years, that is where we are now. Why they ran to the Lagos State House of Assembly, it was a storming stage. And it is a clear call that even those people that conceive these ideas must have noticed ab initio. Then the norming stage is the recommendation that the governments further offer pensionable appointment to interested youth in the state. We are now getting to a stage where everything is now going to be on a normal state, on a normal setting. And then I want to turn the recommendation again, the last recommendation, which is number 5, which states the Lagos State Neighborhood Safety Commission should forward the rules and guidelines of operation of the agency to the House for ratification to forestall confusion with the enabling law. which is now we are moving to the performing stage. I think the committee has done a beautiful and wonderful job that is comprehensive and that will even take the Lagos State safety law into order. I support this bill that if we consider that these recommendations are in order, it will put the agency in the right perspective. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, that was it.
Who is adopting the recommendations? Honorable Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby move that the recommendation of the committee be adopted as a resolution of the House. Thank you.
Honorable Tijani.
I hereby second the recommendation.
All in favor say aye. All in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Deputy Majority.
Right Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues, may I move that this House reverts to plenary? I so move.
Honorable Tijani.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I rise to second the motion as moved.
All in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Deputy Majority Leader.
Right Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues, at the Committee of the Whole, the issue of mass retrenchment of officers of neighborhood were discussed and the recommendations were adopted. Thank you, sir.
Who has the light? Honorable Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to affirm that that was the true recap of what transpired at the Committee of the Whole.
Who is seconding? Honorable Afini.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I second the affirmation.
All in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Now, Mr. Clerk, kindly write letter of restatement of the two chairmen to the appropriate quarters. This is Sandy Mosho and Ibejileki. The request from Honorable Commissioner for Finance is hereby committed to ask Committee on Finance to report back in a week. Deputy Majority.
Right Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues, I have the approval of the Right Honorable Speaker that this House adjourn till 1st of June at 10 a.m. I so move.
Good day.
Honorable Akisoya.
Right Honorable Speaker, I like to second the motion as moved.
I'm sure we are all aware that there is election around the corner, and in a few days now, the primary election of our great party for local government in Lagos State will be taking place. And it's a common knowledge that each one of us has one interest or the other. So to create room for all of us to participate in the exercise fully. So those in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. This House stands adjourned to Tuesday, 1st June 2021 at 12 noon prompt. I rise.